If that's the case, what you're saying is the military should decide this. What do you do with the regulations, which, as was discussed earlier, would seem to permit liability in just these circumstances?
I would say not in these circumstances. The regulation recognized and told contractors there could be liability in certain circumstances, and we recognize that under the test, as I was talking about.
It says, unless you're exercising specific control over the actions and decisions, you're not going to get Boyle. That's what the government told contractors like Fluor. Why isn't it fair to hold you to that?
So we're not asking for Boyle, the preemption under the rule in Boyle, which applied the discretionary function exception. And what was different about Boyle, although it did involve a military contractor, obviously away from the battlefield in a time of war, it adopted a rule not based on the war powers, because that rule applied to all government contractors. But what the government has been consistent in saying for over a decade.
So you're asking for something different than Boyle, because that was a contract case, and DOD told folks under Boyle you're going to lose in circumstances like this, or you might lose in circumstances like this. So you're asking us to invent a new supplement to Boyle.
It's a different rule that is based on the different uniquely federal interests. The uniquely federal interest that the court fashioned a test on in Boyle was a uniquely federal interest.
You should fight back on
Let me
the
ask you,
defense.
if I might just finish. Thank you. You're going to have your shot, my friend.
I'm ready.
Boyle was about contracts, and it was about, if it's specifically directed, well, then you're out of luck. I totally get that contractors in wartime play an increasingly significant role. I mean, we've got briefs before us from the veterans of foreign wars pointing out that in the Gulf War in the 90s, it was like 1 in 100, I'm making that up, and now it was over 50% more recently. And that certainly raises some significant policy issues, and one might think that it would help the military to immunize all contractors, and there's some good arguments for that. But there's another good argument on the other side, which is, well, maybe the military benefit most from having efficient contractors who are less likely to cause harm to military members. And we've got competing amici making both sides of those. Why isn't that a judgment really cries out for congressional decision? And what expertise do we have in setting that rule?
So on that point, I would say this court doesn't have expertise, and has said that in a number of cases, determining what would best serve the military's interests on the battlefield. But this gets back, I think, to Justice Kavanaugh.
So why not just apply Boyle and be done with it?
Because what we have at issue here is the uniquely federal interest of the federal government's exclusive power to wage war. That was not what the court addressed in Boyle. And I think, what is notable—
To answer that question, we have to decide how important is it for the military to have contractors not fearful of liability versus how important is it for the military of contractors who don't injure military members, right? That is what you're asking us to weigh, and you're asking us to come down on one side rather than the other. And I'm just suggesting to you there are really good arguments on both sides of those, which would advance the war-making function of the federal government, and I don't know.
Well, and counsel, sorry,
Okay.
do you have a response to that, or is
Yeah.
that, I thought it was kind of rhetorical, but.
but I was going to say that obviously the military is well positioned to make that determination and when to hold a contractor accountable for an alleged breach, and whether they think that is a situation that will lead to better performance by the contractor. So it's left, under our view, it's left to the military to make that determination and balance those competing interests, and the military does that.